What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Howard Bender. Of course, joined here by none other than Andrew Cooper and Britt Flynn, both from Fantasy Alarm and the Better Sports Network. Thanks so much for tuning in. And, if you're watching us on YouTube, whether it's the Better Sports Network YouTube page or the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so we can feed our families. That's really what we're looking for there. So your support and the ability to feed our families. How's everyone doing today? Coop, Britt, how are you guys doing?
Scott Fishbowl has started, my man. It is officially redraft season. We are free from the constraints of best ball and dynasty and all that nonsense. We can talk about real fantasy football, the way our fathers played, the way our forefathers intended. It's here. It's time. It's the Scott Fishbowl, baby. There's already been a draft, one we're going to talk about today. So I'm fired up.
I wouldn't say the way that our forefathers intended, because back then you had to do stats out of a newspaper, but but it is redraft season. You are correct on that.
And it was always standard scoring back then too, which we know nobody apparently likes doing anymore. You got to have that 212 to 188 game instead of a 52 to 40.
If Elon Musk keeps it up and gets what he wants, we might be back to the days of, sending our picks in by telegram and email and by letter. So he's
mailing out newsletters.
He's trying to take the whole internet down. So
listen, you know what? If the internet were to blow up and that would be it, you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm actually, I don't know about you two, but I'm closer to death than I am to birth. So I'm okay with that, right? Burn it all down, people.
You concert festival hippies live forever. That's how that works. There's something in there, man. The Keith Richard
pickled inside.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys are gonna be just fine. After the nukes drop, you guys will still be walking around going, yeah.
Well, folks, we've got a great show planned for you here today. It's been hyped up on social media. If you aren't following the three of us on Twitter, I don't know what's wrong with you. Snap out of it, get it done, right? Everybody's got their little handle written right there, so give everybody a follow. But if you are just joining us, and this is a nice little surprise, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, is going to join us actually in a little bit. We're going to rehash that discussion we had on A Better Morning, which right here on the Better Sports Network and our YouTube pages as well, every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Me, Britt, Coop, and Corey, we sit down, we discuss some of the hot topics of around sports, both fantasy and reality. We started talking a little running back work today, and we felt like we needed a little bit more time to do it. So Corey's going to join us, and then somebody give me a drum roll here. Give me a drum roll. Scott Fish.
Hey, the man himself
on the program a little later on here. We're talking all things Scott Fishbowl. Obviously, Coop just told you the Buffalo draft started yesterday. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about draft strategy based on your draft position. We'll talk Coop. Coop's got Scott Fishbowl rankings going up on fantasyalarm.com as we speak. And so why not bring the Grand Poobah in here and see what he's got to say about the way Scott Fishbowl 13 has already started to kick off. And maybe he's got some insights for us for when we start heading into our drafts. Britt, Coop, when are your guys' Scott Fishbowl drafts?
Mine's next Saturday in Boston live with the Goons. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're drafting right near Fenway Park at Lansdowne. What about you, Britt?
So I believe mine starts on Monday. I think I've mentioned this earlier, but there's not any live drafts that are close enough for me to go to in the middle of Arkansas. So I'm just going to be doing a slow draft for my computer. But I have to say, Scott Fishbowl 13, Taylor Swift's favorite number is 13. Maybe it's my year.
You got to get that. You can't rally the troops in Little Rock, right? Or what about that venue that you guys got going on where you and Sellers hang out? You guys can't get something going down there?
Maybe. I mean, we had a little mini Fayetteville division last year, but it was just small. There were only a handful of us,
Well,
not as rowdy as Boston.
Hard to be.
I guess we just need a population explosion in Arkansas. Maybe that's what's necessary, right? Some fantasy football players need to just start hooking up with other fantasy football players and bring us some fantasy football babies, and maybe then we can get a live Scott Fishbowl draft going down in the Fayetteville, Arkansas area. As always, we like to start things off here today, well, on this show, with a little bit of NFL news, things that are going on. We know there's a lot of coach speak. There are a lot of popcorn headlines out there. We try to sift through what's important, what's not important. And Britt, you took the reins today, so hit us with the news. What's in the news today?
Yeah, so I know that we're all sick to death of talking about DeAndre Hopkins, but his name has come up yet again today associated with another team. It's not the Patriots, it's not the Titans, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been linked to Hopkins, have apparently been talking to him. I know that they have the smallest amount of cap space in the entire league, but would the addition of Hopkins make the Chiefs the most unstoppable team in the NFL? And Coop, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a bad mamma jamma right there. He would fit so well with what Mahomes does because Mahomes runs around, creates space, and Hopkins can not only create space, but he's great with the contested catches. So when Mahomes does his thing where he just chucks it up downfield, that falls right into Hopkins' bag, man. If he can find himself one-on-one, he's going to be pulling a lot of those down. I saw an additional rumor here. It wasn't directly from any source, but they seem to be in the know that basically suggested that the Patriots and Titans have made the biggest offers money-wise, and the Chiefs, Browns, and a couple other teams are in the mix, but they don't have the money. So he's trying to find he wants to play with a good quarterback, so he's trying to find a middle ground where he can play with a contender and get the money. Kind of hurts my feelings as a Patriots fan, but I understand where he's coming from. You want to play with Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson rather than Tannehill or Mac Jones, but at the end of the day, money is money.
You put Patrick Mahomes on and DeAndre Hopkins on the field together, and I mean, cue that Jonah Hill gif of him just being like, because that, I mean, would be absolute. I mean, that to me is an ideal fit. I thought Cleveland was an ideal fit as well. Put him opposite Amari Cooper. You've got two wide receiver ones working with Deshaun Watson, who knows how to extend plays with his legs. Well, that's Patrick Mahomes' specialty. So you've got Kelsey running around out there. You get Hopkins running around out there. You take one of those, the teeny weeny little guys like Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney, and you have them running these ridiculous underneath crossing routes, and all of a sudden, that's got to be a secondary's nightmare. That would be If the Chiefs, I might need a couple of minutes here, some private time. Just think about it, because I've got some shares. I've done some best ball mania stuff over at Underdog, and I've got DeAndre Hopkins. I'm scoping him, so you guys just excuse me.
It would ruin it. I'll tell you this: there's a number of teams that, like, if DeAndre Hopkins goes to the Chiefs, they should just go full Cardinals and just tank. Like, if you're the Titans and you miss out on Hopkins and he goes to the Chiefs, just trade Derrick Henry. Just pack it up, dude. Like, why? Just move it to the future. Every team except for maybe like 6 should probably just move to the future, honestly.
So I was going to jump in and say, I don't know what disturbed me more, the alone time or the pronunciation of GIF as GIF.
Listen,
no. We're not doing it.
Gen Z people left and right. It's GIF, it's GIF, it's everybody has their own preference. And you know what? The problem is that when you've got this much gray in your beard, no matter what you say, somebody younger is always going to tell you you're wrong. It's one of the reasons why I didn't want to have kids, because I didn't need to have some snot-nosed little kid telling me I'm wrong all the time.
Well, actually,
instead you have us. But anyway,
my 2 children here. Thank you so much. Yes,
we're happy.
Daughter, give me another news story, please.
We're happy to help. So you mentioned popcorn headlines. So in today's edition of Popcorn Headlines, Carlton Davis said that the NFL is in for, quote, a rude awakening post Tom Brady. What are we thinking about this, Bender?
Well, what's the rude awakening? That the Tampa Bay Buccaneers aren't going to suck now that they've got Baker Mayfield? I mean, you can't go from Tom Brady to Baker. I'm not even going to talk about Kyle Trask, but you can't go from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield. and expect that like all of a sudden this team is still going to maintain its prowess in the NFC South. It doesn't work like that for me. Coop.
Yeah, I looked at this earlier. I was like, what is he talking about? And the beginning of the quote is, "We're about to do it to him." That's what Carlton Davis said. He said that it's a team. He said it's a team game. We still have a lot of the components, and I'm only getting better. So this is just Carlton Davis tooting the Carlton Davis horn as loud as he can, while forgetting that the Baker Mayfield horn is kind of a wah, wah. So I don't know. I don't know if the Bucs are about to do it to anybody here.
Ugh.
He's pumping himself up so that when they tank, he can get traded. That's what's going on with this situation.
It's kind of smart, dude. Kind of smart by Carl.
Never mind the 7 touchdowns I just gave up through the first 4 weeks. It's not my fault. There, it's a team effort, and the other guys aren't doing their part.
I've been on the field for 45 minutes out of the game. I'm tired. So let's move on from the Bucs. Nobody wants to talk about the Bucs anymore. But a team that we do want to talk about is the Buffalo Bills. And during their mini camp or their OTAs, Stephon Diggs didn't show up for one day of practice, and their head coach said that he was concerned. So Josh Allen addressed that issue yesterday, sort of. Is there more to this story than what we're hearing, or does he just kind of want to keep this stuff buried, Coop?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though, is that at the time, in that moment, he didn't know where he was. So of course he's concerned. Like, if my wife is supposed to be home at 7 and she's not home till 8, I would be concerned for an hour. But right after that, the very next day, everybody cleared the air. They talked about it. They figured it out. Diggs is fine. And people are talking about him going to like Fashion Week and all this stuff and wearing the crab rangoons on his feet or whatever he was doing. But he wasn't the only guy that was there, right? Like, I saw a ton of guys there. Chase Claypool was there. If anybody needs to be with their team right now, it's Chase Claypool. Like, everybody's out there doing the Fashion Week stuff. People are out there doing it's the off season. It's their vacation time. So of course they're going to do other things. You're not even allowed to practice. The Patriots got penalized for having too many organized team meetings. They lost an OTA. You literally cannot practice more than you're allowed to. So I'm not sure exactly what they want Stephon Diggs to do right now. Like, should he be at Fashion Week? Should he be throwing shoes around and just doing jumping jacks on the plane like Russ? Let the guy be.
Let the guy be. Dustin Ludke sitting there in the chat saying that he did show up. Diggs did show up. He met with the senior and team brass and then went home. Just wasn't at the practice portion of it. You know what? Not being at the practice portion of it, to me, is not showing up. I don't give a damn if you walked into the front office and you're like, you're going to throw me the ball more. Until you throw me the ball more, I'm not going to practice. Right? And then you take off. That's not showing up. Like, to me, there's a difference between showing up. And you two who have been working with me at Fantasy Alarm for how long, you know what my definition of showing up is. And it doesn't mean that you're just physically there. It means that you're physically there and you're performing exactly how you're supposed to be performing.
Yeah, Brandon Marshall showed up to practice that one time. Remember, he showed up and was just getting the ball and punting it as far as he could because he was pissed at it. Like, yeah, is that showing up? Right. So yeah, I'm with you. If you're there, you're there. But it sounds like it's all fixed up now. So we'll see.
I will say Marshawn Lynch did show up to that interview and gave us one of the most clippable moments of all time.
And he was talking to me about no Marshawn Lynch. That dude permanently 86th in San Francisco.
That's right, Howard Britt. That was the big news break. I remember back in the day, right, dude?
Right.
You scrapping at your
mouth for a little while. I was like all set, and I gave it to TMZ. They were like, "Oh well, I don't have it on video. I can't do it." Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Report it, dude. Trust me, it happened. The video will come out." Whatevs.
Hourbender boots on the ground.
Yeah, that's why we love him. Multi-hyphenate here. But speaking of another soon-to-be multi-hyphenate, after a 12-year NFL career, all-time Saints leading rusher Mark Ingram has officially retired and is moving to Fox Big Noon Kickoff. How do you see him going as a broadcaster, Bender?
You know what? I've never listened to him do more than just like a post-game interview. So I don't know how he's going to do it as a broadcaster. I mean, we just, shout out to our producer, Ernie Acosta, who just flashed that very stylish looking picture of Mark Ingram. So he cleans up real nice, looks
battle.
handsome,
Half
looks
the
like
battle.
he can be entertaining, but I don't know. I mean, can this guy break it down? Like, that's the thing. When you're talking about players who can and can't break it down, which is one of the concerns that I think a lot of people have about Tom Brady. Like, Tony Romo is like Tony Romo from the future. And I don't think anybody, listen, this is the last thing I'll ever compliment a Cowboy on, but Tony Romo's a great broadcaster. And I think he does a fantastic job of getting you hyped up and getting you into the game and into the players' mindsets. I see Greg Olson, who's like, not so great. He's more into getting y'all fired up and pissed off about the refs and the play calling and stuff like that. So, to me, I don't know about Mark Ingram as a broadcaster. I wish him nothing but the best. And good luck to you. I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah, the chat seems to like him, saying that he's been on the Kay Adams show. Very quotable is what we're getting here. And I do distinctly remember when he was talking, when he had Lamar Jackson's back and he dropped a big trust on everybody. I hope they let him be who he is, because some guys change a bit from what you see in the interviews and all this stuff, and some guys don't. Like Nate Burleson, he's amazing, right? Because they let him be himself. Yeah, Pat McAfee obviously refuses to read anything. I'm not even sure he can read. He just goes he just goes straight to whatever he wants to say, but it's great content. So I hope they let him be himself instead of sometimes these guys get in there and they try to be somebody else, and that you just don't get the good content that way. So I hope, even though they put the sweater on him, he's still the Mark Ingram that we've enjoyed all these years. And hey, congrats to a great career. I mean, all-time leading rusher for the Saints. They had a lot of good players come through there. Pierre Thomas, obviously Alvin Kamara. So pretty solid.
All right. Well, Get in the Game is sitting there. He says he's going to be a legend, very quotable. How legendary and how quotable can he be as legendary and as quotable as our first guest here today? Let's bring him on in. From A Better Morning Show, he is the fantasy executive, the award-winning fantasy executive. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Corey Parson. Corey, did you get up from your nap? Are you okay? You all right there? I know you got up super early to do A Better Morning. Did you sleep it off?
No. Actually, I'm working on some stuff right now. So I actually have been up since y'all joined me on the morning show this morning. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad to be here now to speak. I fashioned myself a media critic. So like the thing with Mark Ingram joining the Fox show, nobody gonna see it because everybody watch College Game Day. So it don't really make a difference. So shout out to him though for getting that check, but ain't nobody don't know who watches that.
I didn't even know the show existed, to be
perfect. There you go.
That's why they need to bring in the big guns. They need to bring in
College Game Day comes on though.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, all right. So what happened was, if you guys missed this morning's episode of A Better Morning, we started talking a little bit about running back draft strategy. And the question is, we've got all these things like zero RB, hero RB, anchor RB, and just a variety of different things. And I think we all kind of hit a spot where I think that the discussion could have gone on for at least an hour, but we only have 30 minutes for the show, and we still had like 3 more topics to get to. So we had to cut it short. I needed to bring it in here. And so, man, I mean, I don't know which one of you guys wants to guests first. Corey, talk to me here. The thoughts that we had this morning as far as the running backs, the draft strategy went, having a plan, not having a plan. Where do you sit here in this generation of everybody going, I got too much of a rigid plan?
So listen, ultimately, if the draft was to fall the way I wanted, then a big dynamic running back or 2 big dynamic running backs in 2 of the first 3 rounds is the way I would like to go. But I know that can throw anything, that plan can switch in a heartbeat. So my thing is, the best bet really is for this time of year to start getting yourself prepared. So when you do get to your draft, if things don't go the way that you planned and expected, you're not tied into a strategy, because this way you start panicking, you start making bad picks. You want to be adept and, strong with knowledge of the board. So then this way you can just hop in there and let it roll. Every team build, like I look at it like this. We're not just picking players when we're drafting a fantasy football team. We're actually building a team. So you need yardage, you need touchdowns, you need receptions. So to go in there with one set strategy, I think is the mistake. Now, I got a lot of different people I like this year. Like, for example, if you want to do the anchor RB and you got the third pick in the draft, well, what if Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson are the first two picks? Are you going to pull Saquon Barkley up the board just to stick to your strategy? That was the point that I was trying to make this morning. I think you got to be able to be a little bit flexible, excuse me. Now, the yin and the yang tight end is something I've never heard of before. Now, is this strong tight end that you can flex? Is that yin and yang tight end?
So we've been doing it for a couple of years over at Fantasy Alarm. What you do with that is if you don't get an elite tight end, you wait, right? Okay. And then you take two tight ends. The yin tight end is a safe guy you can start for the first couple of weeks. The example we used last year was Zach Ertz with DeAndre Hopkins out. You could wait until everybody was taking their guys and then take Zach Ertz and throw him right in your lineup. And you know you got him for those first 6 weeks. But after that, you're going to run into trouble. Use a second draft spot, a bench spot on your Yang tight end, which is the biggest high risk, high reward guy you could find. We were looking at like Cole Kmet, Evan Ingram. So it's kind of a pairing system where and then, if the guy doesn't hit right away, like Cole Kmet, back-to-back zeros to start the year, you rotate them out until you hit, right? Every year there's a guy comes from outside the top 17 tight ends in ADP that's finished top 5, 6 years in a row now. So that's the game with the yin and yang tight end.
So I want to just go on record and say that I think that my comments were a little misconstrued. I think that me saying that I preferred anchor running back was just that's all I do and I don't have any other plan and I'm advocating for everybody to just do this and da-da-da-da. But that wasn't what I was saying at all. What I was saying is that the way that the NFL is run, the bell cow backs are as rare as narwhals. They exist, but they're a very small percentage of the overall ecosystem. Saquon led all backs last year with 80% of his team snaps, and then he was followed by Josh Jacobs, McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, James Conner, and Jonathan Taylor. These were the only backs who had 70% or more of their team snaps. The big volume backs like Derrick Henry, they weren't even in there all the time. And the only reason he produced is because of his run-heavy offensive scheme. The NFL's just played differently today, and running backs aren't cornerstone pieces of the offense like they used to be. And you can get so much more value by taking your running back between rounds 1 and 3 and focusing on different parts of your draft. Do you want to say you're going to take one of these dead zone running backs when there's a quarterback out there? Your upside is so much higher when you draft a quarterback in that range. And then you get down to round 8, you've got all these contingency-based backs, you've got these pass-catching backs. You have so much more upside waiting and filling out the middle of your roster. And you can pivot any which way you want to. Just, if there's value there, take them. I mean, I'm not saying don't take value, but the main way to build the strongest roster is to avoid those pitfalls in those middle rounds.
I think that's why those big running backs like that go early in drafts. You know what I'm saying? The running backs that's kind of bell cowish or as bell cowy as they can be. My thing with trying to get one of these backs is I think you'll have better luck. You know how we get into the season? As soon as a running back hit the waiver wire, everybody go crazy. They run through their fab for dudes like Jackie Battle. You know what I'm saying? So every running back that gets on the waiver wire is a high priority. I don't want to have that fight every week with my 11 league mates. You know what I'm saying? I want to be strong at the running back position, but don't want it to throw off my draft. I think it's easier to find wide receivers on the waiver wire throughout the course of the year than it is to find running backs on the waiver wire. But I don't want to hamstring myself to do it. Every build is different.
That's a huge part of my point as well, Corey, is that there's all these guys out there that are, putting 150 best balls in and maxing these leagues out. And they're basically saying, oh, well, we did the math based on past years and this strategy has worked and will work. Right. And what's happening is that's trickling into the normal community, the vast majority of people that just play one redraft league. Right. And what they don't realize is that when you do zero RB, if you actually went back and read Sean Siegel's article, any of these articles, it doesn't end at the draft. As you point out, Corey, that's when it starts. Like the whole point is that you go thin and you got to hit on that James Robinson. You got to hit on that waiver wire move. Right. You have to believe that you're strong at that position. My advice to people out there is, if you think you can hit that running back, wait on running back. If you love adding wide receivers, then add wide receivers. If you want to play yin yang tight end with us, and every week I'll tell you who I'm adding, wait on tight ends, lean into your strengths if you're going to go in with some sort of preconceived notions, right? So for me, I have no problem letting anybody fall because we do it all. But if you think you're good enough to do it and you are going to commit to being active on the wire or active trading, then you can do zero RB. And I just want to say one last point that in the dead zone last year, there was a running back that came out and had massive upside and won a ton of people's leagues. His name was Josh Jacobs. He finished at RB.
There was one.
Miles Sanders outperformed ADP by 10 spots.
And he was drafted in round 8.
And I think that's probably to me the important thing here is that, because again, I know it. Everybody out there in the world just wants to be spoon-fed the information. Who do I pick up? Who do I start? Who do I draft? And they just want us to bit. You know, to me, the person who wins their fantasy football league time and time again is the person who understands the concepts. And I think that's one of the things that we have to kind of do as analysts here. It's not just about planting our flag in a player and saying, go ahead and do this. It's teaching them. I mean, how many times do you guys get emails from people that say, hey, so I'm looking at my my draft strategy. I want to go wide receiver, running back. And then at what point should I grab my quarterback or my tight end? Like, as soon as you get that email, your immediate thought is, what's wrong with you? You can't walk in with that strategy. It's establishing, or is it? You know, I mean, to me, it's about establishing your strategy after you make those first 3 picks. We can give you the cliches and say, let the draft come to you and take best player available. But that's not, just because it's a cliche doesn't mean that it's wrong. Like, that's a statement that needs to be heard and needs to be adhered to, because if you take the best player available for your first 3 rounds, whether it's a running back or a wide receiver, or if you have quarterbacks who are, who you rank right up there, you do that, you develop your strategy afterwards, 4th round and beyond. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses?
You got to start putting it together really on the fly at that point. Now, for example, like, I play because playing with the common folks is not fun for me. So I play a lot of NFFC and stuff like that, and you do your KDS where you can kind of pick your draft spot, and if it falls that way, where you're picking. We do your ADP research. You can have a loose plan going into it, and that's the way. Now, me also, I know I play in a lot of auctions. You know what I'm saying? So in an auction, you can always just throw your strategy together and go get who you want, and that's the way I like to play right now. But when you're taking shots in tournaments and stuff like that, a lot of the strategies with stacking and stuff like that is going around. But if you're in a 12-team standalone league, and I throw this question back at y'all, why is it people stacking in a 12-team standalone league? Like, that's a tournament strategy. You know what I'm saying? That's not something to beat, jail from accounting. Why are we doing this in regular fantasy leagues? To me, I think that's I don't think that's a good look for. That's like trying to knock a big one down. That's not trying to win $400 from your buddies. You know what I'm saying?
And that to me is one of the biggest problems. And I've actually been pounding that drum since best ball drafts first started up. I mean, that's a problem for me, is that, people sit there, they're forcing stacks and that's pushing the quarterback ADP up. Yes, it's a tournament strategy, but yeah, we see people try to do this all the time in just their regular old home league. And they feel like that's the winning strategy. When was the last time that, I mean, I've always laughed at people who like stack players from their favorite team, because not only now is your team, does your fantasy team suffer if your favorite team loses, but then you're all pissed off afterwards too, because your favorite team lost and your fantasy team sucks. Stacking is definitely tournament based, and that, I think that's what's one of the things is. It's not just the desire for the mobile QB that's ruining the ADP for quarterbacks. It's the fact that everybody is forcing stacks.
And except the one time my hometown Boston buddy took Tom Brady and Randy Moss, and Tom Brady threw 50 touchdowns and Randy Moss caught 23. That year worked out pretty well. But most times had
McNabb and T.O. the year when the two of them went crazy. Yeah, so listen, it can happen in your 12-team league, and it's fun when it happens. But I think sometimes the audience gets the wrong idea when we talk about stacking and stuff like that, and they start going and doing it. This is to try to knock down a major prize. I looked at, normally, I'd be into it early. I'd already have like 100 and something drafts done by now. But now that, I'm so experienced, you know what I'm saying? And I have kids and, it's all kind of stuff. Howard, you wouldn't believe what these people are asking me to do. It's so much expectations.
I can't believe you have kids. Your gene pool is spreading? Are you serious?
Little execs running around.
Yeah, it's just amazing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I want to ask Britt something real quick, if you don't mind. I just want to ask. So, Britt, you do make a fair point that there is, if you don't like the running backs in that range, then you want to try and adjust your strategy. But wouldn't drafting 2 running backs early also be a solution to the dead zone issue?
I mean, you can, but then you're losing out on wide receiver value. And the way that wide receivers have been going, it's harder and harder to get wide receivers, especially as more and more teams switch to 3 wide receiver leagues. And it's even more important. It's not just an even situation. So that plays a big factor in it as well.
So in that range, the wide receivers and the RBs are bad?
No, I'm not saying they're bad, but you're losing positional advantage.
That's why you take your tight ends and your QBs there.
Yes, exactly.
So you go wide receiver, bunch of wide receivers, 1 running back, QB, tight end, and
we were just talking about not having a set strategy, just having a vague outline, and that's what this is built upon. I'm not saying this is what I'm doing right here.
So let me ask you, Britt, would you be if you go into a 12-team league and let's go, people like Jordan Addison, let's go Gabe Davis as a WR3. Is that a good wide receiver 3 for you?
I mean, yeah, I guess I don't really like.
I think her playing. I think that's to Britt's point though, because when everyone's
you want to move up and get those receivers,
she wants to get wide receivers solidified first.
Yeah, so that she doesn't have to take Gabe Davis. While she doesn't want to take Samaje Perine or Gabe Davis in that dead zone, or maybe Samaje Perine is a good example of somebody after the dead zone. She doesn't want to take like Cam Akers.
So would you like Isaiah Pacheco as an RB2?
He slid up there a little bit. He's right outside of that boundary where I think he's in round 7. I would take him there and make a little bit of an adjustment and draft him around earlier. So that's why you make a little bit of adjustments.
As an RB2, I'd rather him as a flex or a bench player. You see what I'm saying? I think I would want to get that second running back a little bit earlier. Now, that could be me because I've had dynamic teams who were a position away. That position was normally that second running back, and it kind of came from that anchor wide receiver, quarterback, and then come for an Isaiah Pacheco. I don't really like guys like that. I want that running back. Like my best fantasy team I had ever, I had Arian Foster and Ray Rice. And this was the year that Foster went off and Rice was the man. You know what I'm saying? So, now that was almost 15 years ago.
I was going to say the game has changed since then, Corey. The game has changed.
Was a nickel.
I said this. Brett, this is what I would say to anybody that's wants to have all these hypotheticals and know all this stuff. Just tell them go to the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide and read your Anchor RB article because it is a very good article and it's a compelling article. And I think at the end of this discussion, what we're saying is read Anchor RB, read Kev Tompkins' article on Zero RB, read my Yin Yang tight end when it comes out, read your breakout wide receiver article. Keep all that in your back pocket and stay fluid. That's how you do it.
All right, so let me ask you this. You consider Travis Etienne a Anchor RB? Yes or no?
I don't like him, actually.
In that range, though, switch out Etienne for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay, so Tony Pollard's the Anchor RB.
You know what? I'll tell you what. Here. I think this is the perfect opportunity to do this. The lowest you would go for your Anchor RB, like if you're looking at, you just go over to Fantasy Alarm. You can check out the rankings over there. If we're just going to look at some linear rankings real quick, and just say who is what would be the lowest you would go in order to have this person be your RB1.
I'm in that Tony Pollard, Najee Harris range.
That's like second round, third round.
That's the third round.
That's the third
and
round.
And that fits exactly into Anchor RB.
Mm-hmm. So all right. So that's you consider those guys anchors. When I'm thinking,
you're thinking first rounders.
I'm thinking JT, Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs. You know what I'm saying, guys like that.
I got ADP here. Britt, stop me when you think we're getting too deep where you don't like the sound of it. So we got Tony Pollard. Oops, sorry.
I can just tell you exactly. We don't even have to go through ADP. So Aaron Jones' ADP has fallen. I would take him. He is my one exception. He's going as RB16 at an ADP of 47.1 towards the end of the fourth round. But he is the exception. I wouldn't take any of these guys around him as my RB1, even Joe Mixon, because he was really inefficient last season and there are too many questions around him. I think if you're going straight in line with ADP, it's Najee at RB12 in the late third. And that's where I'm drawing the line.
All right. That's fair.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because Kenneth Walker's in there. It's too risky. Jameer Gibbs, Kenneth Walker could end up with half a job. So that doesn't make sense.
So really, we got McCaffrey, Eckler, Bijan, JT, Barkley, Jacobs, Chubb, Henry, Pollard, Harris. And that's the anchors right there.
What about Ramondre Stevenson?
Yep. He's in there.
I would not put him on as an anchor for me.
Derrick Henry?
I don't really like old man running backs like that.
Josh Jacobs?
Love Josh Jacobs. He's a dude. I would put Jacobs in there.
I hear a lot of smart people like Miles Sanders a lot.
Yeah, I like Miles. I would like Miles Sanders.
You
more
want him
than
as your
RB2.
RB1?
Yeah, I don't know if he's your RB1 though.
But you got to take him. You got to take him. You got to go into the dreaded dead zone to get Miles Sanders. So you're supposed to stay out of there, right?
Miles Sanders will rise up the board as we get closer to Labor Day.
I'm steaming him up. We're moving him up, baby.
There you go. let me get him for cheap first, though. You know
what
I'm saying?
You were the one that found the Miles Sanders clip in that.
I was looking for some more stuff. Oh, I can't find nothing else though.
All right, one more player. If
on TV,
if Dalvin Cook signs with the Miami Dolphins, can he be your RB1 anchor?
Britt doesn't like him.
Okay, she can speak for herself. She can say yes or no.
I think he falls right around that RB12 to 14.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
right
it would worry me a little bit.
I'm in on Dalvin if he goes.
You're in on Dalvin?
I think if they're going to pay, they're going to use him.
I'm not too sure. I think it's going to be a lot of different moving pieces. I think you're going to have weeks where you enjoy Dalvin Cook. I think you'll have weeks where you're not going to enjoy Dalvin Cook as that guy. Let me ask you all a question. A player that I'm a little bit don't know how to rank this year. What are you guys doing with Calvin Ridley? As far as if Ridley is on your team, where do you like him at? Because listen, he's coming into an offense that already got, they already homies. You know what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong, Ridley's super duper talented, but Christian Kirk and Zay and all this that's already there. So, I love the talent of Ridley. I think Ridley was ascending to be one of the best receivers in the league. And then he had that bad year where he was going through that stuff, and then he left, and then the suspension. But the first 2 seasons, he was outperforming Julio Jones, and Julio was in that pre-washed area that we talked about yesterday. But with that being said, what do y'all like about what are we doing with Calvin Ridley? Because my mind is not wrapped around it yet.
Julio Jones is in the gene zone, as you called it.
He was in the gene zone.
Acid washed, pre-washed gene.
Has he ever retired, Julio Jones, or he's still fishing?
He's scuba diving in the Caribbean right now, still looking for his diamond earrings.
There you go.
Yeah, so Calvin Ridley, I worry. I do worry. I would prefer to have him as my wide receiver 3, but he goes in wide receiver 2 range because I think Christian Kirk probably gets more targets than him. And I know he had a lot going on, but he was not good in those first 5 games that year with no Julio Jones.
Do you think he was hurt, or do you think it was the mental thing?
Or maybe he's just not used to getting covered by the top corner. Going up against Marshawn Lattimore and those guys, they used to cover Julio. Now they're covering him. There's a possibility. And not to mention, we looked at Deshaun Watson last year in the games he played. It's pretty ugly. And everyone blames him on rust, or maybe he just sucks now. But it's very serious to play professional NFL football. Anybody take a year off from golf or ping pong or whatever and then try playing, and it's going to be tough. So this guy coming right back and immediately being amazing, I'm not quite sure. So for me, I'm actually more likely to draft Kirk at his ADP than Ridley up where he's going, because he goes like 2 full round minimum ahead.
Have you read Ridley's story, though?
It is
about
awesome.
What happened before that season. Like somebody broke into his house. Somebody had threatened his family. I think there was a lot of worry and anxiety going on. I don't think it has anything to do with his ability. And seeing what I've seen, yes, I know that they're only clips because we haven't started training camp yet, but he looks really good. I actually drafted him. I put some examples in this RB1 or Anchor RB article. I drafted him as my wide receiver 1, but I built around him with some high upside guys, kind of using that dynamic tier system. So behind him, I took Godwin, Michael Pittman, Treylon Burks, and Jahan Dotson. So any of those guys have that wide receiver 1 upside if Ridley falls to that like wide receiver 2, in my opinion. But where he's going at ADP, I think that he has wide receiver 5 overall upside.
My issue with Dotson is I think Dotson will be a better player for the Commanders than he'll be for your fantasy team. He kind of has that clutch gene, that big game gene. When they needed big plays out of him, when they needed big plays, and the Commanders don't really need too many big plays. But when they were in a tough spot, or they actually had a chance to win a game, or they was driving, in those big moments, Dotson got a lot of the work. But I think Dotson may be better for them than he will be for your fantasy team.
Yeah, that is scary when you have a guy that, just is primarily scoring touchdowns, but he's not really dropping 100-yard games. So could be pretty rough, especially with Sam Howell at QB. I'm out on Howell. Howard, what do you think about Dotson?
I'm not in on Howell, and I agree with Corey on the Dotson take. I think there is a lot of talent, but there are some, we see it all the time in fantasy baseball too. There are some guys who are just better players in reality than they are in fantasy. Whether you can end up, with getting a guy it's like best ball. Like in best ball, it's phenomenal. I'll take a guy like Dotson all day long, because I don't have to worry about setting my lineup and figuring out if this is going to be the game where he's going to pop. But yeah, so I'm kind of I'm in that zone. I'll look at Dotson, as a filler. I mean, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of guys out there who just based on the way the ADP is going right now, and this is also something that I think a lot of people need to recognize when they're looking at ADP. It's not coming from 12-team home leagues. It's coming from the majority of it all. Where's it coming from? It's coming from all the best ball drafts that we've done. And I think that there needs to be a very dramatic shift in where we're, in what we're looking at. Like I have tons of shares of Calvin Ridley in best ball. And I've stacked him with Trevor Lawrence. I've stacked him with Christian Kirk. And I'm happy about that, because when it comes down to me doing my home league, and looking for players there, I'm probably not going to take Calvin Ridley because his ADP is too high, and I would much rather get that discount and go for a Christian Kirk like that. So, I think that's something that everybody needs to kind of focus on, is that, like Corey asked, where do you rank Calvin Ridley? I want Calvin Ridley. If I'm going to draft Calvin Ridley, it's because I want him as like my wide receiver 3 who could have the potential to move up, right? I mean, if I'm taking like some high-end wide receivers, I take 2 wide receivers with my first 2 picks, I'll look to take DeAndre Hopkins in the 6th round but because he's going to be my my wide receiver 3. That's how I want to look at Calvin Ridley. But the fact that I see him going as high as he's going, it's just not going to happen like that.
Hey, how's this? Let me. Who would you rather? Then I'll let y'all get. I'll get out your way. Dobbins or Alexander Madison?
Ooh, I'll vote for Madison. I'll say it right out off the bat.
Is Madison Bell Cowie?
He's sort of. I mean, we definitely have to see what happens with Ty Chandler and whether or not he's going to actually be utilized as that third down pass catching back, or if they're going to show a little bit of pass throwing love to Madison. We saw him catch passes before, so I like him as that lead running back. I don't know what to make out of this Todd Monken offense and how they're going to do it, because Lamar still loves to run. I don't know how they're going to incorporate Dobbins. You still have Gus Edwards over there as well. And in any air raid offense, the play calling goes, at least 75% passing work. So is that going to go to Dobbins? I don't know.
They've talked about incorporating him more in the passing game and also going more up tempo. So I think I would rather go with Dobbins.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. It's like if the offensive coordinator wants to do it, that's one thing. I just feel like Lamar himself just likes to take it himself. He doesn't like to dump it down. I have Dobbins higher than I did last year, just because the change in the offense, the up tempo, the things that Britt's saying. But I still have Madison ahead, just because Kirk Cousins, one of the least mobile QBs. Him and Jared Goff they don't take it themselves. They definitely don't take it in the goal line. So there's just more room, I think, for upside there. At the same time, though, I get where Britt's coming from. J.K. Dobbins is a lot safer. So, because Alexander Madison could end up being this year's Mike Davis, where you can get the bell cow roll, right? They can take you to that bell cow water, but
people
might not be able to. Yeah, he looked good the year before, but yeah, you can get fooled with that. So the metrics I've seen, the underlying metrics for Alexander Madison don't exact. It's not like Tony Pollard, where all the nerds are saying, oh, all the stats say this guy's going to be a stud. It's kind of the opposite, where everyone's like, the numbers don't really match up with this. We're not really excited for him to get the job. So that's my concern there. But it's just an upside thing for me, where I'm willing to take the stab on the upside and get a guy that has the full job and is catching passes and getting the goal line carries. So it's Madison by a little bit, but Britt makes a good point.
I got a bacon cheeseburger waiting on me.
Well, all right. I mean, that just says
He's just seeing himself out.
Corey, we love. Thank you so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate you. You staying awake and bringing the heat here like you do every morning, man. We will catch you Monday morning, and again, folks, give the fantasy executive a follow on Twitter and like all his stuff, because it's all well worth it. Corey, thanks so much, brother.
All right, I'll holler at y'all. Have a good weekend, everybody. No doubt.
Corey Parson, hotter than cheeseburger grease.
Right? Hotter than fish grease, baby. That's my new favorite phrase. That's the saying of
the week, dude.
Gotta bring that in there. All right. Well, let's wrap up our talk here for running backs. Although we did sort of deviate. I don't know how we got sidetracked to Calvin Ridley there as we were doing that, but I want to kind of finish off this talk about running backs that we were looking at doing here with that late round running back article. Now, Kev Tompkins put this together over at Fantasy Alarm in the draft guide, and this piece turned into a Leviathan. I love it too, because he really does a fantastic job of breaking down all of the backfields and every single player who's in on it. Now, I don't want to, give everything away or, kind of rehash that entire article, but I mean, let's talk about some of who are some of our late round targets. Who are, what are the traits of what you're looking for? Let's start with that. Like, for a late round pick of a running back, what are you looking for? Coop, you look like you're about to diarrhea of the mouth, so go for it.
I'm just so excited about this article because it really is. It's so good because Kev Tompkins been doing zero RB for a long time, and he understands that you need to have a mix of different guys. You need to have guys that you can start right away. You need to have guys that have upside but might not be startable. You need to have pass catching backs. So in the article, he actually breaks it down into 4 different types of late round RBs: contingent value backs, which are basically guys that if something happens to another guy, like a handcuff, for instance, their value goes up. A.J. Dillon, a handcuff plus, he's a contingent value. So that's one. Ambiguous backfields is another. Miami Dolphins, easy example. Any one of those dudes could really kind of be the guy. Then you got receiving backs, a guy like Samaje Perine is what we're looking at there. And then you got standalone backs, which are guys that sometimes they slip through. Miles Sanders may be a little deep there. So I love that he breaks it down into that and kind of labels these guys that way. So you can look at what you've drafted so far early on and say, okay, what do I need? Like, I've already got a couple of these. I've drafted a couple handcuffs. So now I need somebody I can start week 1. So for me, one of the guys I like from the article, one of my favorites is Devin Singletary. The way I look at it is Dameon Pierce, great runner. No one's arguing with that, but he ranked outside the top 120 backs in pass protection per PFF. The new offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, worked for PFF for 3 years. That's probably part of the reason they brought in Devin Singletary, who ran the 6th most routes of any back last year. His quarterback didn't like dumping it down because he's a mobile QB, but he was out there playing the snaps, running the routes. He can pass block. I think it's going to be a split backfield to a certain degree. And if this team is going to be a 5-win team, 6-win team, like Vegas says, they're not going to be able to run it as much as we want. Howard, one of our other sayings of the year, right? Running is a luxury of the winning team.
Running is the luxury of a winning team.
In this case, Devin Singletary could be in line to be a guy that if you're going zero RB or anchor RB, and you just need somebody that you can put in there and not get you a 0. I like Singletary. Britt, from the article, I know you and Kev have been crushing these articles and this, this particular category. So who are some of the guys that you like in the deeper ranges?
Well, I'm not going to throw out particular guys, but I'm just going to tell you what I'm looking for, like traits that I like in these backs. I like to target the pass catching backs because targets are so much more valuable than carries, even in standard leagues. I know it seems a little weird, but even in standard leagues, targets are more valuable. You've got a much higher chance of success in these later rounds if your backs are pass catching backs. We've seen it with like Jerick McKinnon last season, Devin Singletary, like you just mentioned, Coop. So having a pass catching back on your roster is huge. The handcuffs, and I'm ruthless. I like drafting other people's handcuffs just for one, so that they can't have them, and for two, so that maybe we can make a trade if something happens to their running back, and three, so I don't have to spend fab if something happens to their running back. The thing with these late round running backs too is if they don't work out, they don't cost you anything and you can drop them and find somebody else who's emerged from the waiver wire. If you draft like a Cam Akers, who you drafted with a decent amount of draft capital, you just kind of have to hold on to them because you spent too much on them and then they just become a waste of a bench spot. Then you finally get frustrated with them, drop them, and somebody else picks him up and uses him against you to win later on in the season when he finally does come on. So I think that the pass catching aspect is the most important, but go read the article. It's got a lot of really good points in there.
It really does. And you know what? And I kind of try to favor that pass catching aspect in the later rounds as well. When you look for a Jerick McKinnon or a Ty Chandler. But I also like looking for certain things that live in the uncertain range. New Orleans. Is Alvin Kamara going to get suspended? Is Kendry Miller ready to take on a bigger role? They brought in Jamal Williams. Shout out Jamawful. But you bring in Jamal Williams, and you saw what he did as far as the short yard goal line back for Detroit last year. And you know, when you're looking at a team like New Orleans, and let's face it, Pete Carmichael's going to want to do a strong amount of throwing there. He's got Olave, he's got Juwan Johnson, he's got Michael Thomas, he's got Raheem Shaheed. So they've got those kind of weapons there that they can get that ball downfield nice and quickly. And that kind of puts Jamal Williams into a really nice spot. We've seen that even when Alvin Kamara is back. I mean, his red zone touches were not as strong as you had originally hoped. I mean, they went to a lot of Taysom Hill with that kind of nonsense. And I think that one of the reasons why they kept going to Taysom Hill was because they didn't have the confidence in that short yardage running back situation, a guy that can just put his head down and plow through. So I think that a pick like Jamal Williams kind of plays out for a lot of people just in that sense. He's not going to rack up a ton of yardage, but he's if you're sitting there stuck on a bye week, I mean, you need somebody who's got that potential of getting into the end zone. You kind of have to live in that realm.
And in half PPR and standard, I think we really underestimate. So many people talk about PPR these days. You really underestimate how valuable guys like that are. David Montgomery too, potentially, one touchdown. That's all it takes, right? So those formats, I'm all over those guys for sure. And even in PPR, I mean, if you're going to be anything like Jamal Williams last year, I know it's a tough ask, but he doesn't have to score 17 touchdowns to help put you over the top at a flex or in a RB2 spot, right?
Well, and that's something that PPR has kind of contributed to as well, is we want to preach all the time that you can't count on touchdown dependent players. You can't count on them, But if you're drafting as a late round asset, then that actually helps. And they do return value. They don't have to hit every single week, but when they do, they're going to help your team out as a fill-in.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like if you're going to go with these strategies, like obviously if you go with the Corey Parson strategy of draft 5 running backs to start your draft, then you might not need these guys. But if you're going with the popular strategies, then you have to fill in the blanks. And sometimes, like last year, it felt pretty good when I had injuries or bye weeks to put Jamal Williams in there and know that it's like a coin flip for a touchdown, right? That's not a bad feeling. With Taysom Hill, it's not coin flip level, right? So with Jamal Williams, David Montgomery, don't mind him at all. Brian Robinson, maybe even, but that team it's not quite as good. So you want if you're going to go for the touchdown guys, go for them on the good offenses. Isaiah Pacheco, right? Guy like that. Go for him on an offense like that.
I like that. Although I every time I listen to Britt talk about Antonio Gibson, it makes me love Brian Robinson even less and less. Like all of a sudden, because I mean she threw it right back in my face. I'm sitting there talking about Brian Robinson, and she just threw my standard article right back in my face. She's like, Eric Bieniemy's there, and we all know that Eric Bieniemy is that Andy Reid offense, and Andy Reid loves the guys who can catch the passes, and we've seen that a ton.
Yeah.
We have a question in chat. What do we got there, Coop?
Got a question here. Our buddy Getting the Game asks, Zamir White for the Raiders behind Josh Jacobs, or Tank Bigsby on the Jaguars behind Travis Etienne? Britt, do you have a preferred option here?
It's Bigsby by a mile. One, better offense, more efficient. We didn't really see a lot from Zamir White. Worried about that offensive line, worried about the quarterback situation. And I think that Bigsby can have standalone value even if ETN is healthy the entire season. I think he can get that goal line work. He can get the third down work. ETN might be more of a pass catcher, but Bigsby's going to have a big role. You don't spend third round draft capital on a back unless you're planning on featuring them and featuring them heavily.
Yeah, and I think we saw enough of that with the use of JaMychal Hasty last year as well. ETN was perfectly healthy; he was fine. They still went to JaMychal Hasty because they needed that bruising, take it between the tackles, especially if you've got a frail running back, like lead running back on your team, you need to complement them with somebody. That's why I agree. I think Bigsby is a great call here as a bruising back. I also think that. When you brought up David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is the pass catcher. You go to the Eagles, right? Which of the Eagles guys takes it between the tackles better? Is it Swift? Is it Rashad Penny? Or is it maybe Kenneth Gainwell? So, if you're looking at the team that is set up their lead running back as one of these pass catchers who may or may not be able to, durably take it between the tackles, then I would definitely look in that direction.
Yeah, I'm with you on Bigsby, though Dustin makes a good point in the chat. This is something that our own John and Pemba has kind of floated around where right now, if everything were to stay equal, it's Bigsby over White. But there is a little part of this scenario where what if Josh Jacobs is upset? What if they start off really slow and they say, okay, we've got this kind of 1-year deal, which is what the franchise tag is, and we know we're not going to sign him to a long-term deal, so let's flip him mid-season. That's the argument for White, but for me, that's something where you target him off waivers. You don't bank on that happening. But that would obviously be a path that's available to White that's not available to Bigsby. But
especially
it's a lot of hypothetical.
When you're looking at a back like Jacobs, which we saw them use it last year, didn't re-up the 5th-year option, didn't pick up the option for him, and they just ran him into the ground. Like that was one of the things that I said last year when everybody was like letting me have Josh Jacobs in the 7th and 8th round. I'm like, what? Do you not think that this guy is going to run with a chip on his shoulder because he's looking for a contract? So, kind of put that in that same realm here where, okay, they could trade him later on, but why wouldn't you just, if you want to run the football and you like to run the football, and we know Josh McDaniels, he's based in that Erhardt-Perkins system, and that is predicated on the run setting up the pass. So why wouldn't they just kind of lean in on that again? I think, Zamir White is an okay pickup as the handcuff there, but I agree with you. I'm not targeting him because I think that his touches will be significantly less as long as they're running Jacobs out there every game.
And feature multi backs. Josh McDaniels was there last year, Tommy, and Zamir White had 17 carries. So it's not like he's just showing up now. That's the end of that one.
Yep, right. I was looking at that same comment and saying Josh Jacobs got 75% of the team snaps last season.
He was there last. They were both.
Come on, get in the game. Get in the game,
Tommy.
All right, practice what you preach, Tommy. Let's go.
Yeah, Raiders. Go. All right. He's a Raiders fan. He wants Zamir White to be a thing.
We're gonna have Scott Fish joining us in a little bit. We're gonna talk Scott Fish Bowl. Coop's got Scott Fish Bowl rankings. I want to talk about draft strategy based on what your draft position is. We say to be fluid, but now we're dealing with super flex, crazy scoring, no negative points, And on top of that, you're also talking about a third round reversal. So we'll take quick time out here. When we come back, Scott Fish will be in the group. He'll be joining us. Get ready. But first, here's a little message from our friends over at RT Sports.
My first bust is going to be Devontae Adams. There's two reasons why I'm going to be avoiding him. One, his age, and one, his QB situation. First off, his age. He's going to be turning 31 this year. There's only 2 wide receivers in all of football that are 31 or older and having production like top tier production in the top 50 wide receiver rankings, and that's DeAndre Hopkins and Keenan Allen. There's only 2 wide receivers that are older than him ranked in the top 50, and both of those have been struggling with injuries. So the injury bug might be coming towards Devontae Adams just with that age, so that's definitely a concern for me. And then his second situation is with the QB with Derek Carr being gone and Jimmy Garoppolo taking over. Garoppolo doesn't target downfield as much. He's more of those quick, short passes, release the ball quickly. So that's definitely a concern for Adams, especially with he relies so much what he did in Green Bay with his touchdowns. And he's currently being drafted at 17 for his ADP, so that's a bit too high of a price for me to pay for him.
Yeah, definitely a high price if you want to get Adams. I can totally understand why you'd be fading him. I actually have a former teammate of Adams as my first bust, and that is New York Giants tight end Darren Waller. He was dealt to the Giants this offseason, takes over as their starting tight end. My issue with Waller is he just can't stay healthy. He's played just 20 games the last 2 seasons because of various injuries. Now he moves to a new offense, an offense that's not going to throw quite as much as Las Vegas did. I think you could see less targets. Waller might still have a decent season, but I'm expecting his numbers to be up and down, especially compared to past years, and I just have a hard time expecting consistency from him in a move to a new offense and with his injury issues of the past. I'm just letting somebody else deal with him. I don't think he's worth the risk.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. It's Alarm Fantasy Football, and Scott Fish will be along joining us. He's got to plop the 5-year-old in front of the PlayStation, and then he's got to figure out if his son Ian wants to sit and hang with him, wants to do his own thing. But that gives us an absolutely fantastic opportunity to tell you or to remind you, if you followed us on social media, you know that this is coming. But we got a little giveaway here, thanks to our friends over at RT Sports. RT Sports has their fantasy football championships, which is a big tournament style thing. You end up drafting your team. You compete in a 12-team league, and then there's a giant overall championship. The entry fee is $300. We are giving away a spot in the best ball champion. It's not a best ball, in the fantasy championship. It's a full season fantasy football contest. The guaranteed grand prize, $500,000. That's right, $500,000, baby, to win the overall here. Leagues are drafting live right now. They do have slow drafts that are going on as well, so you will be able to get in that. $1,600 in league prizes for every league. And then league features live scoring twice weekly. You've got Fab, a couple of flex spots you're going to have to fill out. And then there's a 3-for-1 discount here that we're also talking about. So there's lots of stuff going on here at rtsports.com. And you guys can, for us, I mean, we've been talking about their Pick'em contest and how great that's been. And you want to jump in on that. Go to rtsports.com/alarm. and use the promo code ALARM23. That'll get you a 100% deposit match up to $200. But if you want to jump into this fantasy championship here, you can go to rtsports.com/TFC, the fantasy championship. You get rid of that? Huh? rtsports.com/TFC. But a little later on here, after Scott Fish joins us, we're going to be giving that away with a trivia question. Britt Flynn has come up with the question. Not going to tell you what it is right now because I know that all you guys are going to be sitting there on the Google machine trying to figure it out beforehand. But Britt's going to ask the question, and then first person in our chat, that's going to be the person who wins it. So that's all coming up here. While we wait for Scott, I mean, let's talk about it here. Let's jump into it first and foremost here with talk of, you know, your thoughts on Scott Fishbowl, the scoring this year, how it is in comparison to years past, the theme this year. Are we into the theme? How are we liking this? I'm gonna start with you, Britt. What you got going on for Scott Fish? What division are you in? What pick do you have? Spill the tea, baby. Come on.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have seen me in some of these live streams and podcasts, but I usually have a Sonic cup with me. So understandably, I am in the Sonic division because that's my favorite thing. And I'm drafting out of the 8th spot. I drafted my first year out of the 7th, last year out of the 6th, and I didn't like the 6th as much as the 7th. So I think I'm going to roll it back and do 8 this season and see how I like it there with that 3rd round reversal.
Coop, what's your division? What's your draft position?
Oh man, so I am in the Boston live draft, and to anyone out there, if you can go to a live draft, you really should because it is so much fun. We had a blast last year. The draft spot I picked was literally I just looked and saw where Mike Fiala, FF Daddy's home, was picking and picked whatever spot was next to him because I love talking trash with that kid. We have an eternal battle going. Last year, to spite me, he drafted Evan Engram, the second highest of any person in the entire tournament. So 3,000 people in this tournament, he reached for my favorite player and took him second. So we're going to find a way to get him back this year. I'm picking 5th. And I love the themes this year. I wore it all day yesterday for 5 shows. So this one needs a break, but I got my high noon shirt right here. Scott Fishbowl, baby. Let's go. Let's get it. Dude.
Let's go. I am also in a live draft, San Francisco. That actually is tomorrow. And so we got I'm in the Buena Vista division, and the Buena Vista division and the Round Table Pizza division going to be drafting simultaneously. I took pick 10. I kind of feel like I was in the back end of the draft last year as well. And maybe that didn't work out for me as well as I had hoped last year. So I'm trying to run it back. I'm going to try a different strategy. Maybe I will ignore all things Raiders because that was garbage last year. But let's figure it out. The guy who runs the whole show. I don't even know. Does he compete in this draft here? Let's bring him in. Oh,
what's going on, guys?
Yeah.
There he is.
The man.
Wow, the Scottfish helmet.
The
Look at
Scott
that.
Fishbowl helmet. Show that one.
Helmet.
Are you auctioning that sucker off or what?
We are going to be auctioning that thing off during the podathon this weekend. They'll be on air for 36 hours or whatever it is, trying to auction that thing off. We'll see who gets it.
That's going to be awesome. I'm jumping in at 1:30 tomorrow. Howard, are you doing the podathon? You popping on?
I'm actually not. Nobody asked me to do the podathon this year.
Come on, dude. Come on with me and Pemba. We're doing 1:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Just jump on. They love that.
No.
I think they will love that.
He's got his draft.
No. Yeah, actually, I'm going to be at the live draft in San Francisco.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm going to be running the show over there. Scott, first and foremost, man, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. You know, you and I got to spend a substantial amount of time at the last FSGA conference in Cleveland. So I feel very blessed for that. You and I did the Tootsie Roll dance, and you guys can find that on
Didn't we? Did that qualify?
Oh, you did. Oh, that's on the internet.
I took a lot of heat for that one there also because they were like, we can't see your legs. Well, I'm sorry, you don't want to see my legs.
Nobody wants to see our legs. I have these long, lanky legs. No one wants to see that.
Not me. I got like the short legs. I got the long torso and the short little stubby legs. So what are you gonna do? But dude, so talk to me here. Buffalo started up yesterday. This has got to be one of the most exciting times a year for you.
It is. We got 18 live draft events around the country. I know you were just talking about Boston, San Francisco. We had Buffalo last night. London is Friday at 7:30 p.m. So that was either yesterday or 2 days from now, or I'm not even sure. Like, I don't know how time zone work, but it's coming up at some point here. No, actually, I think that's about a half an hour away. Yeah, we got live events all over the country this weekend. The Minneapolis ones this weekend, but all the main slow drafts start Monday at 10 a.m. That's when 25, 26, 2,700, whatever, people will all be drafting together at that point.
That's amazing, man. Like, there's going to be a lot of mothers with empty basements this weekend. Let's just say, right? Well, now I will. So anyway, Scott. So last year we had a bunch of live drafts. It was a lot of the bigger cities, right? It was like Boston, Chicago. So some of these smaller ones, I know that they've got some things planned. Is there anything that you've heard from some of the drafts out there that either new this year or a smaller city that you're kind of excited about? That's kind of a cool twist, because I know, New York's doing a big blowout. Boston, we're doing a 50-50 raffle. Bob Gilchrist and them set up a crazy thing. But is there anything out there that you've heard that you're kind of excited about from one of these live drafts?
So this is an insanely tough question for me, because I know of two things that are going to happen at two live events, but I can't reveal them.
Okay.
So now you've asked me a super loaded question.
Hey, we're not throwing softballs on this show, Scott.
Now I want to know. Come on, spill it, Scott. Let's go.
I will tell you, Philadelphia is an Xfinity Live, and it's not just an SFB event, Fantasy Cares event, but it's also an FSWA event. So if you're an FSWA member, you should go hang out at that one. But I know, I wonder what's confirmed in Cincinnati, because I know there's a bunch of stuff going on in Cincinnati, like $100,000 worth of stuff for raffles and games and contests. I know that there's going to be a special surprise guest there. I know of a couple other cities with special surprise guests. I just cannot reveal them because it's supposed to be a surprise.
That's fair. That's fair. And that's a good teaser, though, because that's an even better teaser, because now there's all these people out there that are going to a live draft. And
I didn't even name the cities.
Exactly. They're like, is it mine? Could it be mine? Could it be maybe Boston?
I'm sending someone to Howard, and he has no idea.
You know what? I wish you would, because all of a sudden now I hear all the buzz here in the San Francisco ones where, seem a little lame. I'm just going to be, we're going to do some videos. We're going to do some interviews. I'm bringing in a ton of pizzas for everybody.
Yeah.
We got a bar open, but
that's awesome too. I mean, you can have that. That's pretty much what Minneapolis is doing too. A bar and grill with awesome food, just a bunch of people. And then you got Vegas, which is on the top of Circa and Stadium Swim with the pools and everything going on. That's a live draft event. So they run the gamut, man. It's all good. They're all fun.
Well, and your last response saying that you had a few special guests lined up, but you couldn't reveal them, kind of tied into my question for you. So as we know, this is a Pro-Am tournament and the biggest Pro-Am charity tournament, and that also involves a lot of celebrities. When you first started the Scott Fish Bowl, did you ever think that it was going to grow to have this many people, celebrity-wise? And who was your first participant, if you can remember, who was a celebrity in Scott Fish Bowl?
Celebrity as in non-analyst, because guys like Mike Clay and stuff played in year one.
Yeah, so let's just say non-analyst.
Yeah.
If you can remember, I know that's kind of
the first one where I realized, man, this is actually becoming somewhere that it's gotten out of the fantasy analyst range, was James Roday, the guy from Psych, the lead Sean Spencer from Psych, A Million Little Pieces, etc. Now James Roday Rodriguez, but I watched literally every episode of Psych. I was a big Psych fan, or Psycho as they called them. But he joined up, and I'm like, okay, wait a second. Is this the James Roday? But since then, there have been a lot of actors and athletes, both former and current, that play. It's just, I never would have seen it coming. But that was probably the first one where I was like, whoa. The chat mentioned a really funny one, is that Shane Battier, former NBA player and, Duke Hall of Famer. I think he's Duke Hall of Famer. Well, Duke All-Star anyway. He signed up for SFB and didn't get in his first year signing up.
Exclusive,
that's
dude.
Hilarious.
So right, those folks out there that complaining, don't feel bad. Shane, former NBA player Shane Battier did
it's
not
because
get in
he went to Duke, right? You were just no way.
I will full on admit, had I noticed, he would have, but I completely missed it. The lists are long. Like we have 30,000 people signed up. It's not easy to go through all those lists.
Yeah, that's wild. There's a guy that I still talk to from my first year doing this, and I didn't even know it when we were first chatting that this guy is not an analyst. He's an Emmy award-winning documentarian, and he still has documents. Yeah, BJ Levin.
BJ Levin.
BJ Levin. Yeah, and now we talk to him all the time. But it's so funny that he got in, and I was talking to him, and I was checking out his profile. I was like, dude, you got an Emmy? What the hell? And he's like, well, yeah, I got a documentary coming out on HBO. I was like, what, dude?
That's awesome.
Yeah, the Nirvana one.
I talked to BJ on the regular. He and I were actually working on a project together. We're still talking about working on some projects together. I guess, you know what, if we're going to share some fanboy out stories here about it, I think it was when Tom Everett Scott was in Scott Fishbowl. And of course, that thing you do and all that. Yeah. And so as soon as then I saw the following season that he was in the FCC Eliminators, and I was like, I'm going to join this. I got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I met him in LA last year for the LA Live. He's a really nice guy, taller than you would think. He's maybe he looks tall too, but we're about the same height. He's probably right in that me and Coop range for height wise. He's a tall guy, nice guy, really nice guy.
That's what's funny with the live drafts is you realize because we only see this much of people, so you see how tall or short people are. It is kind of at the expo every year. That's a game I play. I'm like, oh, what's up, dude?
Oh, this guy's tall. No, I was the same way with Tom Everett Scott. I was like, man, this guy, wow, I've seen him in so many things. And for my son, he's like a Diary of the Wimpy Kid dad, so we see a different actor, but yes.
So Scott, talk to me here. Let's chat up about the scoring because no negative point. It's all. I mean, is this just the theme? It's like Scott Fishbowl is all about positivity. No penalties, huh?
Yep. I tweeted out that stay positive or be positive or something a couple weeks before I had completely nailed down the scoring. It was kind of a little bit of a teaser that I kind of got sick of the last 2 years. What I did with quarterbacks was really separated the tiers and made, good QBs really good and bad QBs really hurt you. And I didn't like really hurting people. I didn't like people getting a -14 from their quarterback. So I just wanted to be positive and have everything be happy and lots of points. And because of this food and beverages theme, I felt it was a good year also to, what I do in real life with food is just indulge more and more volume, so you're getting points for indulging and points for volume. So it's a thematic scoring system, kind of like the video game year. We had bonus points for things, very video game style. So it's going to be a fun year. I think people will like it. It's going to be interesting.
I know you were thinking about that idea for a while, the whole just blow it up, have it go crazy, right? So I'm glad you finally pulled the trigger on that because this is going to be cool. And I know Linda is fired up because the kickers now have not only no negative points, 3.3 points for an extra point, and you get points for the yardage. So if you get Justin Tucker out there kicking a 50-yard bomb, that's a 5 spot.
Yeah. I figured extra points, they're only 1 point for kickers. I felt bad. They kick it 33 yards. They kick it like they do a field goal. Let's give it to them. So
they're pulling their weight. Yeah, that's so how, let me ask, I know you've seen some of the early mocks. We've seen the Buffalo draft. Kickers for yourself. And honestly, I prefer to ask Ian because he's kind of taken over as the premier analyst in the household, right? But since we only have you today, the number one, he's making a push. I don't know. I talked to Kevin Tompkins, who was at the live draft last year in Minnesota out there, and he said that he was kind of running the show. But I have to ask, do you take kickers in your own? Is that part of your own strategy, or do you have? Are you putting them in there as an option, but you're not doing it yourself?
I'm definitely taking kickers. As for which kickers, I'll let this guy talk.
There he is.
Well, there he is. Run it together.
The man himself.
Give me your top 3 kickers for this year in fantasy.
Number 3 would be Evan McPherson, probably. 2, Harrison Butker. And then 1 would be Justin Tucker.
All right, buddy. Good job.
So he goes high-powered offense. high-powered offense, and then the big leg. He knows the scoring. So
There you
Justin
go.
Tucker, they're not scared to wheel him out there for the 50-yarders. So hey.
I love the shove him out of the way and be like, "Hey, this is Daddy's spotlight here. What are you doing?"
Wait. Actually, I'm checking the stream now, and when he left, we actually just 5 people stopped
Lost viewers.
5 people stopped watching.
Everybody
Yeah, they
just
were like,
dropped.
That's it for analysis from the guy."
Scott knows that he's coming for his chair soon enough, so he needs to enjoy his time in it while he's got it.
Yeah. Sorry, I totally talked over you. I feel bad.
No. You don't feel bad
That's
at
what we
all.
do
You're the
on this show.
man.
No, he absolutely runs the show at the Minneapolis Live event. The terrestrial and on iHeart too. Fantasy Football Weekly is the longest running radio show in fantasy, and we do a live show at live like 3 live events. 2 of them are at the State Fair with everybody watching us. He comes up on there and he gives analysis during it. People love it. People love that kid giving his fantasy takes.
Truly, though.
I can vouch for that. I myself also do. I always enjoy hearing him talk, but I want to go back to this inflated scoring because we've touched on tight ends a little bit, but just how boosted they are, we haven't gotten into the specifics of it. So it's a tight end premium, but also you get an additional extra full point for receptions and a full point for first down. So one play could result in 6 points.
It's ridiculous.
Do you think I noticed that you mentioned it in your scoring video that came out that maybe you overdid it a little bit, but that was what this draft was about. Do you think that affects how this draft goes? Like, have you seen it in the draft so far? And in the mocks, are people just going completely tight end crazy, even over the quarterbacks? And even though this is a super flex, or is it a little bit more balanced than you thought it would be?
The drafting of it seems more balanced than I thought it would be. Honestly, at least the mocks I've watched Ian do and the Buffalo drafts I was watching last night, it feels like they're going at a fairly normal click for any tight end premium league, except for maybe Kelsey is going, instead of back half of round 1, he's going first half of round 1 because seems to be such a positional advantage there at taking Kelsey. I have a 101 and I'm considering Kelsey. I have 4 guys I'm considering. Ian thinks I should take Hurts, but I'm still debating it. It doesn't seem to be playing out as such a crazy difference. I will say people are going to be very happy with lower end tight ends when they do hit, though, because of that, because tight ends on the lower end of tight ends are going to be very boomer bust. Like if you get a 6 catch, 75-yard day out of a tight end randomly, that's going to be like a 20, 30 point day in SFB. And it might be a tight end that's normally bad, but he has that one good game, that one good matchup that they read in Coop's article to get points from.
Yeah, I'm fired up for it, man. I even last year I had like 6 tight ends. Like I always go crazy because the thing is, if I'm going to win, you know what I mean? I want to win my way. I want to win with my brand, right? And
do you like that I completely flipped the script? Like I came up to you at the expo last year and I'm like next year, Coop, no tight ends.
Yeah, you're like, I got this idea. I want to run by you. I was like, what is it, dude? That's the equivalent. That's the fantasy equivalent of pulling my pants down in front of all my friends.
No tight ends. And wait, I'm just gonna give tight ends everything.
Yeah. I think that was the first thing I heard from you at the expo, which was that was pleasant. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And you know what? It's a pleasant surprise. So I do want to ask before we let you go. I know we have people watching. A lot of them are saying they're in the Scott Fish Bowl, but there's people that aren't in it, and it can be very frustrating when you're not in. I completely understand that. For it was a lot of us were out there trying to get in. Shane Battier is trying to get in, and it doesn't always work out. I know you've preached. Obviously, everyone needs to follow you, follow Ryan McDowell, follow Fantasy Cares, be a decent person on the internet. That's the big minimum requirement. Right. And try and get into as many of the giveaways and stuff you guys do. Yep. But if there's any other piece of advice for people besides just signing up that might be able to give them a little edge or help them out, what can you throw out there?
I mean, you've really listed it. The being active, being involved, like putting yourself out there, making sure you are signed. You would not believe how many people want to play in SFB that we look them up and we're like, dude, you're not signed up. Like I swear the sign up would be $50K, $60K instead of 30. And remember, like keep an eye on that. It's 30,000 people signing up for 3,000-ish spots. Like it's a 1 in 10 chance anyway. It's really tough. But the biggest key I say is join any kind of satellite you see is out there. From the underdog satellites to the mirror leagues, we do a guillotine league one. There are several different play your way in options out there. And if you do a bunch of those, you might hit one. Like that's one of the better ways to do it. But if you're that if you're that active trying to win them in those, we see that. Like we get the lists. We know what you're doing. So we see that you're actively really interested in playing. So I guess that's about it.
That's awesome, man. And you guys, it's tough. It's tough to be the guy that has to be the bouncer to this type thing. So kudos to you and Ryan and the crew behind that for doing it, man, because it's one of my favorite things ever. And I wouldn't be doing this without that tournament. I'm not kidding. That's where I met the people that I did my first podcast with, the besties and the crew, and how I really got into this. So without that tournament, man, I wouldn't be sitting right here, man. So thank you for doing what you do, buddy.
Thanks, man. I love that story. I hear that story year after year from many, many people who have made different paths in this industry, and I love it every time. So really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on too.
Oh, dude, always a pleasure. You shout it out to everybody where they can go if they want to, if they want to donate, if they want to see, some of the live drafts, anything else that you want to, you think the world needs to hear and know right now.
Sure. Scottfish24 on all of the 27 new social medias there are and Twitter. And then fantasycares.org is where you can go to donate. Scottfishbowl.com is where you go to sign up. You can also, on that same site, look up which live events there are to see if there's one near you that you can go join some fellow fantasy football loving people in. That's about it, man. Both of you, all three of you.
Well, Scott, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Everybody in the chat room loves you, and good luck in your draft, and good luck keeping sane at this time of year.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Right, again, at ScottFish24 on the old Twitter machine. Give him a follow and get in on this. Get in on this. And yeah, for anybody out there who wants to know also, I mean, as far as donation goes, I'm going to be running a little bit of an auction at the San Francisco one. We've got these Scott Fishbowl commemorative rings that Trophy Smack put together. And these things look absolutely fantastic. I don't have it here with me. It's like nice in the box and everything. You guys can go and check it out. Go to trophysmack.com. You'll be able to see the commemorative Scott Fishbowl rings. We're going to be auctioning one of those off, as well as an autographed Brandon Ayuk jersey. So, just drumming up a little business there for the Fantasy Cares people. Scott does such amazing work for everybody out there. Such amazing work. So I'll tell you what, I'm in the giving mood. Scott Fish has given us the giving mood, and all you guys out there who are sitting there in the chat, it's your time right now. We're going to give away one spot in the RT Sports, Real-Time Sports Fantasy Football Championships. It's a $300 entry, grand prize $500,000. We're giving you a free entry to it if you can answer Britt's question.
So I put out a tweet this morning that kind of alluded to this, if you guys were paying attention on my Twitter. I said that the MVP award has just been quarterbacks, and it's kind of boring. So my question is related to that. Who was the last person to win NFL MVP who wasn't a quarterback or a running back? And I'll repeat it again, just in case y'all didn't get that. But who was the last person to win NFL MVP who wasn't a quarterback or a running back?
I actually know the answer to this.
You do, Bender. All right, let's see if the chat can figure it out.
Let's see if the chat can figure it out.
Nothing yet.
We should have brought in some Jeopardy music.
Keep in mind, you're basically getting if we were offering a $300 scratch ticket where you win $500,000. Imagine that. Now this is a scratch ticket where you have control over what happens. You can actually win this league and win $500,000. We're giving that away for free right now. We got some answers in the chat. Dustin with AP. That's not it. Looks like we have somebody in first just under the wire. And it, of course, naturally is a Fantasy Alarm lifetime member, Scott Frankel.
And
with
Giants fan.
Lawrence Taylor and Giants fan. So
6
the
seconds
man's coming in.
before George
George,
Costanza.
yes, that's a Boston guy. He's running the 50-50 raffle in Boston, so he's in the giving mood as well. We'll be giving away a Fantasy Alarm draft guide as part of that Boston live draft. And remember, folks, this year, first year ever, you can come out and hang out even if you're not in it. So come on, hang out with us. It's going to be a fun time. I'm an approachable guy. You come up, say what up to me. We'll get a beer. So come out, hang out with us. We're giving that away. But yeah, Scott Frankel, congratulations, dude. You're going to go represent Fantasy Alarm in the RT Sports and maybe win $500,000.
Love it. There's right there in the chat, Scott. All you have to do is email contests at bettersportsnetwork.com. Yeah, well, considering we all know who you are, we can vouch for you. So anybody out there trying to fake an email, it ain't going to work because Scott emails us before.
Because we're family.
He's family. Yeah,
he's family. So there you go. Congratulations, Scott Frankel. You get yourself a little entry there. When we come back, well, we got more stuff that we want to talk about here. Coop's got Scott Fishbowl rankings, and then we haven't talked even draft strategy based on your draft position. We'll get to all of that right after this message from our friends over at RT Sports.
Kenneth Walker currently has an ADP of 32, and it's not that I don't think he's the most talented, but the situation is not great for him this year. Seahawks just drafted Charbonnet in the second round. They're going to be using Charbonnet just as much as I think Walker with that offense. You don't draft a running back in the second round and not use them. So that's definitely a concern. And Seattle, they're going to have an electric offense, but there are so many mouths to feed. You got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN, and Charbonnet, and then Walker. So, I mean, those are 5 elite players that all need to get fed in that offense. So the volume is definitely a concern for me there. Again, I got him in the Champs League at 45, which that was just too far for him to drop in value-wise, which is why I took him. But currently being drafted at an ADP of 32, it's just too early for me.
I agree with that. And sometimes players are better in different formats, and I think all those
Absolutely.
Seahawks, I feel better in a best ball format.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you just don't know when those big games are going to hit. They're going to hit. You just don't know when they
Yeah,
hit.
if you're in a standard league, you want more of a safer play, and you don't want those boomer bust plays.
All right, I'm gonna talk about another player that is on a new team as a bust, and I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers from the New York Jets. I think a move to New York is going to be a positive for Rodgers, getting a chance to play with a little better talent around him offensively, especially at receiver, than he has the past few years with Green Bay. But you just can't ignore last year. Rodgers was just 13th overall in fantasy quarterback scoring. He had just 2 games all season with 20-plus fantasy points. That's a really low number. He threw for less than 3,700 yards, failed to reach 30 total touchdowns on the season, had just 1 3-touchdown game all season. I just don't think he's the same player as past years. I know he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, want to prove everybody wrong, but I just think with all the good QBs out there in fantasy land this year, I'm avoiding Rodgers. I just don't think he's worth the risk, in my opinion.
You don't know, no matter how many times I see that commercial there. I mean, I love Jeff Power, but why you gotta be dogging New York the way you dog them? Like Darren Waller's gonna be a bust. Now Aaron Rodgers is gonna be a bust. That almost it hurts my feelings here. Really hurts my feelings.
We got to get him on.
Personal.
We got to get him on. We're gonna have to, because we got to settle this because the Darren Waller one, that's coming at me. The Aaron Rodgers at you.
It's coming off like a personal attack, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think he was snickering in between takes on that one. We'll have to beat him up on that.
Right? Damn. Well, all right. Well, again, congratulations to Scott Frankel on winning that best ball, not best ball, that fantasy championship one. And again, guys, you guys can join yourself. Go to rtsports.com/TFC. And get in the game that way. Or you could try RT Sports Pick'em Contest and go to I always say Fantasy Alarm. It's rtsports.com/alarm. Promo code alarm23 matches up to 100% of your deposit up to $200. All right. Wow, I tell you, man, I'm all amped up now for my draft for Scott Fish tomorrow. We got a lot of stuff to talk about here. One of the things that I wanted to kind of get with was, obviously the third round reversal shakes a lot of people. A lot of people. And when you're sitting there and you're signed up for Scott Fish Bowl and you're looking at, where you want to go with certain things, you get to choose your draft position. So, are you choosing the front? Are you choosing the back? Britt, you're right in the middle. So you really don't get affected too much by that third round reversal for that. Coop, what pick did you say you had again?
I took 5.
You took 5. So slightly, adjusted there. So I'll ask you then first then. So at 5, when you're looking at that, what was the reason behind taking the 5th spot?
To be next to Mike Fiala so I could try and snipe him and ruin his draft.
Okay.
But the real other part of the reason, and this is,
I was okay with that.
I mean, you got to understand how the Boston live draft works. Like, I don't think anyone from Boston's winning it, but we're having the most fun.
Yes, we get it. You're all drunk and none of you are nice people. That's Boston. All right, whatever.
That's right. Bob Gilchrist is a great guy. He sets up a great party. So definitely come hang out with us on that. But the reality is that the third round reversal, to me, it always is going to work the same. In that you don't want to compromise your first pick. So what I do is I sit down and I make a list of the guys I would feel incredibly comfortable drafting. And for some people, like in a tournament like this, where it's crazy scoring and no negatives and quarterbacks are superpowered, that might only be 3 people. Some people might have sat there and said, I want Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or Jalen Hurts. And those are the guys I have them so far ahead of everyone else. I'm picking 3, right? But for me, I looked at it and said, I have Travis Kelce in there, and I have another player in there that I'm not going to spoil because I got my draft coming up. But
you can say Bijan. It's okay. We're good.
You got it. It's Curtis Samuel. So when I go through, but you got to do that yourself. And this goes for all third round reversal drafts. Sit down whenever you get to pick your spot, of course. Sit down and ask yourself, how long is my list of players? Because the farther back and the bigger that list can be, the more benefit you get from coming back and then coming back again. So if you are confident with like 9 guys, awesome, because that's just going to give you better players in the second and third round, especially if you like somebody like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. You can make this list as long as you want it to be and take advantage of that. For me, there were 5, and also despite that I need to unleash on Mike Fiala. So that's why I needed to go 5. What about you, Britt?
Yeah, I think I'm picking 8th. Because I think with this new scoring, people aren't going to be as gung-ho about quarterbacks maybe, but Scott just kind of maybe ruined my theory with his answer to my question in the last segment. But I think that I still can get a high-level guy at pick 8 and then fill in around there, and I'll have a faster or a higher pick in the second and third round. Man, if you have never played third round reversal, it gets you. Sellers was in his first Scott Fish Bowl last year, and he was like, oh, I get to pick my spot. I'm picking 1, and didn't pay attention that it was third round reversal. And his team, he still made the playoffs. He still did great, but he was definitely shaken up. So be prepared if you've never played in third round reversal, that is something when there's 24 picks in between your first pick and your second pick. That can be a long time.
It can be, but it's kind of funny. I actually I had a later pick last year. My wife had the first pick in her draft, and actually a good friend of mine, she actually had the first pick in her draft, and her husband had a late pick as well. Now her husband and I, we kind of went through the conversation of, okay, well, we've got our list of players, we know who we like. We're now gonna, picking 10th or 11th or even 12th at that point, that you're getting 3 top, 25, 27 players on your roster. And so you feel good about that. And that's like the plug for the back end. But he and I both did that. We both missed the playoffs. Both our wives had the first pick in their drafts. They both made the playoffs. And actually, my wife made it to the semifinals and his wife made it all the way to the finals. Wow. So, I guess that's the data we need to be taking a look at. Really, is how many people with that first pick, or a top 3 pick, ended up in the finals, as opposed to, dudes who think that they're smarter than the rest of the world and they don't make the playoffs, and their theory is a complete bust. I can blame my whole thing was blamed on the fact that my team sucked because I invested in the Raiders. That was so stupid. But I mean, George Kittle was my 3rd round pick, my 3rd round reversal pick. I was like, okay. I waited too long on my second QB. So, I mean, that was just kind of the methodology there. Now, let me ask you, with the whole super flex and the 3rd round reversal and the fact that there is no negative scoring, so we don't have to worry about the interceptions, where are you guys at with regard to grabbing those QBs? Like, Britt, you're going to be picking 8th, so you're not going to get one of the big name QBs out there. I'm picking 10th. I'm not going to get one of the big name QBs out there. Are you more focused on the position players than you are QB, or what?
I think I might still go for a QB in the first round just because of positional scarcity. And there's still so much good value based on rankings and ADP at this point. I mean, you've got Trevor Lawrence, you've got Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson kind of in that range. And if any of these people before me focus on a Travis Kelce, on any of Justin Jefferson or Chase, then I've got a pretty decent chance of still getting a good quarterback. And without that negative scoring, I can focus on the position players maybe next round or two. And then my second quarterback, who cares if he sucks? I don't get negative points for it. It's going to be great. Coop, how are you attacking this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost certainly taking a quarterback or Kelce. That's the strategy I'm going into. And if I take, the thing about this format is if I take Kelce at 1, the reason I don't take Kelce in my regular redraft leagues, the home team, 10 team, 12 team, 1 tight end spots, the reason I don't take Kelce is because I'm not leaning into what I do best. Like, I spend all year looking for tight ends and breakout tight ends. If I fill my spot with Kelce, now I'm just filling my bench with guys I'm not going to use. But in this format, as Scott Fish pointed out, it's so strong that, and there's so many flexes, you start 11 guys, that even if I take Kelce, I'm still drafting 2, 3, 4 more tight ends because I got all these flexes to fill. So I have no problem taking Kelce in this format. In fact, I'm quietly hoping that he's there so that I can take him and then build a real powerful tight end build. So I'm okay with him there. I'm okay with quarterbacks there. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I was well within the elite quarterbacks. But to your point, Britt, I think that when I look around, I might personally, and if you look at my rankings that are on they're going to be up on Fantasy Alarm, the whole Scott Fishbowl ones. Yes, George, and all you Boston guys in the chat.
Are they not up yet? Do I have to yell at
should
somebody? Do I have to
Somebody's
smack somebody around here?
Yeah, they'll be up by the end of the day. But yeah, George, you know what? If you buy a draft guide, when we're giving away, we got to do the 50-50 raffle after the draft because we're giving away a draft guide. I don't want anybody getting in there for free during the draft, at the draft. If you want it, you can buy it. My rankings are in there. But I'll say this, a little spoiler for everybody. 10 of my first 15 players ranked are quarterbacks. So it's a quarterback-focused league. Quarterbacks are, the scoring is absurd, and you can really dominate if you get the right one. So that's how we're ranking them.
Breaking news: tight end whisperer drafts a lot of tight ends.
Film at 11. There are a lot of 10s in the in the chat here. Ninja Chickens.
See him, yeah.
George says picking 10 is where it's at. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of funny because, I mean, I did a mock the other day with some friends of mine, and there I was, and I picked 9th because somebody had already jumped in on the 10th spot. And I was gonna actually do a mock without taking a quarterback in the first round, but based off of what went down, obviously the top QBs went off, the top 4 or 5. But then I was looking at like the position players who were available to me, and it really didn't do a lot for me as far as like, just knowing the grind that I was gonna have, because if I didn't take a QB first, I was gonna have to take the QB with my second pick. And then it was like, all right, 10, 11, and 12, that's 6 picks right there in a super flex league where I could be held without a quarterback. So I just grabbed Trevor Lawrence. Now I'm a big fan of Trevor Lawrence. I love what's happening in Jacksonville there. But yeah, I've kind of, in looking around and knowing that now, even picking 10th, you've got 4 picks in a super flex. And the last thing I want is to like all of a sudden it's like my first pick, my first quarterback taken ends up being like Derek Carr in the second round. Like that's a that's a fear. That's a big fear of mine. So
it's scary.
Yeah, I feel like taking that QB there at the top is probably the way to go, especially if you are concerned about the people drafting behind you, and what they're going to end up doing. And then it obviously the third round reversal helps assuage that whole thing because you can grab that quarterback, see what happens in your second pick, and then make that determination because that come the third round, whether or not you think that there will be a good viable second QB there for you, or if you're gonna, keep hitting the wide receiver running back situation.
Well, the good news is the Buffalo live draft fired off last night, so we can actually pull. There's 2 drafts that are 10. They got 10 rounds done, and then they started going to the slow clock. But we can pull up the first 10 rounds of those and see how some of those teams look. I got it here. If you give me a second. Oh, that's Britt. Hey, Britt.
Hi, big face.
Yes.
Hi,
Excellent.
big face.
Hi, yes.
All right.
Is that how like Sellers wakes up with you in the morning? He's like, "Hi, big face."
It's normally the cat smacking him in the face, but yes, he's also fat and a big face.
Hey, Sellers, he's big and strong, not fat.
No,
okay?
I was talking about the cat.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, your cat's fat then. I don't care. I just had to have Sellers back. I thought you were talking about you're going Sellers fat. Okay, so here's what we got. This is a real Scott Fish Bowl draft, people. This is the Fatty Beer Co draft. Was drafted live yesterday. There's a pretty good crew here. We know that Adam Krautwurst is one of the analysts in this draft. He was drafting from the 6th spot there. I believe his sleeper name is Tyrannosaurus for some reason, but that's his team there. First round, Josh Allen, Travis Kelce, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow. Pretty chalk to start. And then first position player, Christian McCaffrey. Anything jump out to you guys from that first round there?
Yeah, that Justin Jefferson could be had with the 10th pick.
Crazy.
The fact that he got Trevor Lawrence, see, now that's the thing. Like, my fear is that the 2 teams behind me are going to, grab some QBs and then I'm going to be stuck. But yeah, if I could start my draft like that, Jefferson, Lawrence, and Barkley, I might need some extra time again, guys. Excuse me.
Stop doing
the possibility of it.
Stop doing that. Now the thing is, Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp, pretty interesting with that build. Fantasy Fabio there, picking from the 11 spot. And I will say this, like, to win a tournament like this, you got to balance. It's really tough because you want to go high risk, high reward as much as possible. But in the middle and later rounds, you got to remember the first 11 guys that you draft are going to start for your team because you start 11, 22 total guys picked, 11 start. Everyone on this board, unless they drafted doubles of certain positions or 3 quarterbacks, is starting. So like FF Gouge there, he has 3 quarterbacks in there. Whoever he picks next round is in his starting lineup week 1. So Fantasy Fabio with Anthony Richardson, Russell Wilson, another rookie, CJ Stroud. He's going pretty high upside, but they could run into a little trouble if they don't start picking guys that they can put in their lineup right away moving forward. Britt, with a build like that, are you more prone to go wild upside like that, like Fantasy Fabio there, or do you kind of play it close to the chest earlier and get as many guys you can actually start in the early rounds?
Typically I do, but in this scoring and the way that this scoring is set up with no negatives, I think upside is the way to go because you're not going to get dinged. You don't, the floor is a lot higher than it would normally be because there is no negative scoring. And so I kind of like the way that this is being built. And even those later round guys that you get, we've seen people over the past few years, like our I think it was SFB9 that Gary Haddow won. He waited on tight end and took Darren Waller, and he got him super, super late. So there are guys, you don't necessarily have to start the first 11 that you pick. There are going to be a lot of values as the season goes on. So yeah, I'm fine with chasing upside in the early part of your draft.
Yeah, Gary did his move was he waited, took 4 in a row, and one of them happened to be Darren Waller, and that shout out Gary Haddo, because that draft happened before Antonio Brown was kicked off the team. So he was in on Darren Waller before it was cool. A little hipster action there. Howard, what about you? As far as are you trying to load up your 11 starters within the first at least 11 or 12 rounds, or are you willing to go a little crazy at some positions and overload them, knowing that maybe you can figure out tight end or quarterback or something, maybe not quarterback, but other positions later?
Yeah, I think that I would probably steer more towards the starting positions. I mean, I don't want to rule anything out because, if let's say it's here at the tail end of the draft and it's my pick, and I have the opportunity to grab, if it's going from 1 through 12 instead of 12 through 1, if it's going 1 through 12 and I can grab my third QB, and that's like the last of like a really rock solid third QB, and I'm not totally enamored with the running backs or wide receivers or tight ends there, I might make that move. I don't hate that move, but I don't feel like this is a format where you really should be ignoring any position. Like I don't think you're not punting. Like there are two teams here that don't have any tight end whatsoever, and it's not a question of it being tight end premium, but the problem is that the tight ends that these teams are going to wind up with, the starting tight end that they're going to wind up with, is going to be riding the struggle bus. And that's, so you do get a distinct advantage if you have just at least a legitimate tight end. And I'm talking about, guys, I'll go as far as, I guess Schultz and Njoku, and, Okonkwo, of course. Like, I would want to make sure that I had at least somebody like that to be in my tight end position. I would make sure that gets filled first.
Yeah, and look how many tight ends that have been drafted at this point. Like when you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's not that hard to get one of those guys. You know what I mean? So, a couple of these teams in there are going to be scrounging. I love Better Boss's comment in the chat. Fabio's RBs doesn't like him. When Better Boss, Matt, the guy drafted Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine. Isn't that what you just did in the FSGA draft that the three of us hosted? Isn't that exactly what you just did?
Exactly what he did. Exactly. But then again, the Better Boss is also touting Irv Smith and Hayden Hurst as those tight ends who you want. And I'm sorry, but the former Bengals tight end chilling out in Carolina behind all of those wide receivers, and the new Bengals tight end who's chilling out behind Higgins, Boyd, and Chase. I mean, I don't think you're going to be saved by either one of those tight ends.
It's thin.
Howard obviously did not watch my video on YouTube Shorts over on our Fantasy Alarm YouTube page.
We'll have to check it out. Is it a Hayden Hurst video or Irv Smith video?
It is a Hayden Hurst video.
Okay. Hayden Hurst, actually, I don't mind as much as Irv because there's a little more uncertainty.
I will agree with that.
Yeah, a little more uncertainty there.
But
right?
he ain't saving. But I know what I'm going to watch that video, Britt. When did that come out?
It came out this morning, so it's very new.
I haven't been doing anything else this morning, so I probably should be just sitting around eating bonbons from the couch and just putting on YouTube videos.
We're like,
of course.
We're like 4 hours away from just going full. What was that Jim Carrey movie where he's just being recorded the whole day? Like
The Truman Show.
The Truman Show. If we go 2 more hours of shows for Howard during a day and it's full Truman Show, we might as well just strap a GoPro to you and put it live. Because I mean,
don't forget, folks, at 1 p.m. Eastern or at 4 p.m. Eastern, I'll be on the Better Sports Betting Show, and then right after that, I'll be on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.
There you go, dude. All day, baby. You get your share of Howard. Well, I got to ask you guys. So we have half a draft board here, which is nice. That every single one of these teams has at least 2 quarterbacks. Some have 3. So when you go through and you comb through, and I'll let you pick 3, a group of 3 if you want. Which quarterback room do you feel the best about? Which quarterback pairing, or would you rather have one of the teams with 3 quarterbacks? When you go through here, who would you feel good about? Just the quarterbacks. Forget the rest of.
I can't read it.
Yeah,
I know it's very small.
What do you want me to do? Okay, so the first pairing is Josh Allen and Daniel Jones.
Coop. We're kidding.
Okay,
Come on.
Oh, easy, huh?
Which group do you like the most, Coop?
I don't know. I was too busy asking the question and getting yelled at.
Ah.
Britt, who do you
I'll
like?
go ahead and jump in here. So I kind of like what they did with Justin Herbert, and then 3 rounds later taking Jared Goff. They got a lot of value in that second and third round by punting quarterback to the 4th round. And with no negative scoring, I think that's going to be a really good play. We saw what Goff did last season, and it's going to be a little rocky with the receiver situation, but I think I like that the best.
Yeah, a lot of passing yards there. That's no question about that.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, right there. Team Kyle 716 right there in the front. I kind of like that QB room.
The big
You don't care about Daniel Jones's interceptions now, do we?
And his fumbles, dude. He had a streak where he was fumbling like every single. He was averaging a fumble a game for a while there. Goff has had that issue too, and when you take that away, not so bad. Not so bad. I think the one I like best in terms of just like getting rock solid value and using the 3rd round reversal to your advantage is the guy that went Joe Burrow and then Dak Prescott in the 3rd, right? And he's leaning into the format pretty hard because he's got Mark Andrews in between there, but. There's a world, we talked about it the other day on the Quick Outs pod where you were filling in for John and Pemba. The over-under for pass yards for Dak is 4,050. They're setting that line at a 4 spot, which is, that's pretty big. A guy like Deshaun Watson is set at like 3,600 per Vegas. So if you're getting Joe Burrow there and you're getting another 4,000 or so pass yards from Dak Prescott a couple rounds later, I kind of like that one. I think that's pretty solid. Although I do kind of like how Megatwan scrapped it together with Cousins, Pickett, and Bryce Young. For waiting to the 4th round for your first quarterback, it could have got way worse. It could have been real ugly. So I don't mind that. What do you guys think about that team? Megatwan picking out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spot. Started Christian McCaffrey, your boy Nick Chubb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kirk Cousins. Then he went Jahmyr Gibbs, one of Britt's guys. Pat Freiermuth, Kenny Pickett, David Montgomery, Chigakonkwo, my baby, Bryce Young, and Michael Thomas, another guy that I like that Howard does
your
not
baby
like.
again.
My baby again, but maybe a little bit of an older baby. He's more of a
like the big baby.
He's wearing diapers for the other side of the scale. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that squad? Is that something you would do at all? Just looking at it personally, it's not something I would ever do, but I think they got away with it, right?
I think I value quarterback too much.
Me too.
To just completely punt the position like that. There's too much value to be had or it's too important to just punt off. And we don't even know what we're going to get with Bryce Young. We honestly don't know what we're getting with Pickett in his 2nd season. What's Matt Canada going to do with that offense? So I'm not going to totally poop on it, but I'm going to say I'm uneasy with it.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't love it either. Especially, there's always baked in risk with McCaffrey. He's not the lock player of like complete dominance. He's not, So I would probably avoid doing something like that. It's kind of funny. I'm just going to keep going back to the 10th spot here with Jefferson and then Trevor Lawrence. I probably would have attacked the 2nd QB a little earlier, and I would have been happy with it. Like I would have been happy with Jefferson and then Lawrence and then Barkley. But coming back around, then I probably would have grabbed instead of doing DK Metcalf, I probably would have ended up grabbing like a Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I would have taken Russ there for sure. I'm with you.
Sam Howell as a 2nd quarterback is rough.
Yeah, Joe Frick in the chat.
Desmond Ridder is your third, your third option.
Joe Frick in the chat with an amazing point. Josh Allen and Daniel Jones both have the same bye week, and that's also during Scott Fish Bowl playoffs. So that's a little bit dangerous there.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. All right, well, that's going to do it for us here on Alarm Fantasy Football. We'll be back next week. Bringing you guys more shows here. You're going to absolutely love it. Oh, big face. Big faces. Look at that.
Ernie, can you fix this? I don't know what I did.
Congrats again to Scott Frankel for winning our RT Sports giveaway. My 2 babies right here. I got my arms around you there. Thank you so much for all the heat that you guys bring. Guys, don't forget on the YouTube pages, hit that like and subscribe button. For Britt Flynn, for Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender. This has been Alarm Fantasy Football. We'll catch you next time.